Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Oh, hold on a second. Okay. Welcome to this presentation. My name is Rebecca Vargas. I'm a board member of ReWild Long Island. And for those of you who don't know about our organization, ReWild is an organization based in Port Washington, and we focus on sustainable landscaping. And we love native plants. So in this presentation, I'll be talking a little bit about rewilding and why it's important, and then Kim will follow up with her list of 22 plants for 2022. Let me just make sure everybody's here. Okay, yes. And okay. And then you can feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and then we'll try to get to them, or maybe at the end. Okay, so the first thing I just wanted to bring up was some definitions. So native plant, a plant that is a part of the balance of nature that has developed over hundreds or thousands of years in a particular region or ecosystem. And plants found in this country before European settlement are considered to be native to the United States. Invasive plants are non-native to the ecosystem, and their introduction causes or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm to human health. And we have a big problem with invasive plants here on Long Island and across the country. It's just a big headache. And with the invasive plants also come the invasive insects that thrive on those plants. So it's just a problem. A cultivar is a plant variety that has been produced in cultivation by selective breeding. Some cultivars originate as mutations. Others could be hybrids of two plants. Rewilding is gardening with native plants and allowing ecological relationships to happen. Whoops. So why rewild with native plants? As you all probably know, native plant gardens are one of the best things we can do for the environment. I was surprised to learn a few years ago that we have over 400 native bee species here in New York. And I was really shocked to learn that they don't live in hives. I always thought bees lived in hives, but they actually nest in the ground, and they nest in old plant stems and just between rocks. So native plant gardens, they provide all these important nesting places, as well as pollen and nectar from flowers that are easily recognized by our local insects. And of course, larger animals like birds also benefit from native gardens. Additionally, the native plant gardens, they don't require as many inputs as a traditional garden, or a lawn. So you have no fertilizer, no pesticide, no herbicides, very little watering after a few years, and pretty much no mowing. So it's very beneficial to the environment to have native plants in your garden. So here's some information about plant selection. These are just some general points. In general, you would avoid double blooms. Now, double blooms are flowers like this, which look very beautiful and very decorative, but they are not useful to our local wildlife. So let me show you here on the next slide. This is, on the left side is the straight wild species of this plant. It's Rudbeckia lacunata. And on the right, it's a cultivar. And so you see the difference. The one on the left, the seed head, the middle part is very easily accessed by the bees and other insects. The one on the right, it's very fluffy, lots of petals. It's very difficult for the bees to get in there. And some flowers are actually altered to the point where they don't even have pollen or nectar in some cases. So it's like these kind of plants are really not beneficial to the environment, to the ecosystem. So we avoid double blooms and, plants that are altered in this way. Then the next thing to avoid are plants with a change in leaf color. Some plants might be altered to change their leaf color. So instead of green, they might be purple or red. And that's just purely for aesthetics, but that changes the composition of the leaves. And so then the insects don't use that plant. So then it becomes kind of useless in the environment. So in general, you avoid double blooms, you avoid plants that have a change in leaf color, and cultivars that alter size are usually okay because they don't change the main characteristics of the plant, they just change the size of it. And then one other thing to think about when you're planting your garden is to include at least 2 to 3 plants for each season to sustain wildlife. Like the goal is to have a garden that's blooming from April to October. That would be ideal. You have things blooming and then some things die back, other things come up and bloom. So in early spring, the bumblebees emerge. They need lots of pollen nectar. And in the fall, for example, monarch butterflies, they need nectar sources to prepare for their migration southward towards Mexico. So the fall, I think a lot of people forget about the fall. Everybody's so happy about the spring and the summer. Like that's when we're focused on our gardens, but the fall is also important for wildlife. And then winter as well. Birds need berries and seed heads to sustain them through winter. So we like to leave these plants up through the winter so they can just come up and perch there and pick out the seeds and take what they need. So these are things to consider when you're selecting plants for your garden. Here at ReWild, the plants that we offer are not double blooms or altered like that. So you don't have to worry about that. This is a little bit about the site preparation. I think probably a lot of you already know, we recommend the cardboard and like the smothering with the cardboard method. Basically, you take a sheet of cardboard and you lay it on the ground that you want to prepare your planting, and then you add several inches of wood chips or compost or topsoil, and you do that a few weeks or months before you plan to put your plants in the ground, and that smothers that area, so that way your new plants don't have to compete with all the weeds that have been growing in that area, which are strong. A good source for cardboard sheets, like for free, are big box stores like BJ's and Walmart. If you ask, a lot of them have like cardboard sheets between pallets and stuff, so they have really big pieces, but you can even use packing boxes as long as they're not shiny, as long as they're just, brown. And so you would just put the cardboard down, water it, and then add your mulch on top and let it sit for a while, hopefully a few weeks. Then, once you pick up your plants from ReWild, you can just leave them at the site. You can leave them outdoors. Just make sure they get, sunlight and watered regularly. And then if there's a storm, you just put them inside in a protected area for like a while, maybe a day. But other than that, you can leave them there until you're ready to plant them. And so then on the planting day, you can just make holes with a hand shovel. By then the cardboard should be soft, so you should be able to penetrate the cardboard. Or you can use an auger drill bit to make your holes and then put your plants in the ground. And I just want to show the auger drill bit because it's kind of a lifesaver sometimes when you have a lot of plants to put in, and if your ground is a little bit compacted, this is a good tool. It's basically a bit that it's like $20 at Lowe's or something like that, and you can attach it to a regular drill, so it's very helpful. Okay, and then in terms of after you have your plants in the ground, you will need to water them about once to twice a week, depending. They might need more watering during the summer. You have to stay on top of the weeding. Weeds will definitely creep in, especially crabgrass, so it's important to be aware of what common weeds look like and to pull them early. I use Plant ID app. I use PlantNet, and some people use iNaturalist. So these are good so that you can get an idea of like what the weeds look like and then what your plants look like when they're young, because they might also look like weeds. So you have to know what you're pulling. And I would recommend weekly weeding to stay on top of it. You have to pull the weeds so they don't compete with your new plants that you're putting in the ground that need time to establish. And you'd expect to weed and water regularly for the first 2 years, and then after that, hopefully, the garden would run itself. Here you have some common weeds that pop up in our area. Crabgrass, I think everybody probably knows. Narrowleaf plantain, lamb's quarters, horseweed, ragweed, and mugwort. They look cute when they're little. They can grow to be over 6 feet tall. So you should really, know your weeds and pull them early so you don't have, a 6 foot tall plant to deal with. In terms of disposing of the plants that you pull, the weeds that you pull, it's a good idea to have a brush pile in your yard if you can. The brush pile, it provides for birds, and also it provides hiding places for insects, and also some butterflies and moths, they might overwinter and they might look like leaves, like old leaves, but they're actually little cocoons. So that way, when you put them in a brush pile, they're not being bagged up and thrown away. So at least they have a chance, to survive. So I like the brush pile. Eventually it decomposes, it breaks down to soil, so it's not a big deal to have the brush pile. The only exception with the brush pile is to not include plants that are noxious, like poison ivy, or invasive plants like oriental bittersweet or a tree of heaven. Those, you don't want to include those in your brush pile. Let me see. Okay, bugs. We're hoping to attract bugs, bumblebees, butterflies, all kinds of critters. That's a good thing. We want this to happen. You're trying to create an ecological relationship. You're trying to create a balance. We don't, for that reason, we don't recommend using pesticides. And most of the time, really, there's no need to intervene when you see bugs on your plants. So I would tell you just resist the urge to spray pesticide. Even organic or natural pesticide can have detrimental effects on bees and other insects. And like here, for example, is a monarch butterfly egg on a milkweed leaf, and it's so tiny, it's so hard to see with the naked eye. So if you're blasting this plant with water or even wiping it with a cloth, some people do, you might take out, you know, the insects that you don't want, like aphids, but then you'll also remove the good insects like this monarch butterfly, you know, caterpillar potentially. So as long as the roots of the plant are not damaged, the plant will grow back next year. So you don't have to really worry too much about the bugs. And bugs will come. A native plant garden and chemical-free garden, bugs and critters will come, but it's a good thing. And here are some other bugs that would appear, hopefully, in your garden if you keep it chemical-free and you have some good native plants, you know, for them. You have praying mantises, dragonflies, opossums, and all types of birds. So I never saw a mockingbird ever in my area. I've been here 10 years until I let a pokeweed grow. So once they had the pokeweed, now I have mockingbirds. So, you know, and it's important. Another reason why the native plants are important for birds are that most of the birds, they raise their baby birds on insects, not on seeds or fruit like what we would think, you know, like a bird feeder. The babies actually need the insects. So we need the plants to bring the insects or attract the insects, and then that way the birds have something to eat. So it's all a whole web, and that's why native plants are just really beneficial. And then my last point about rewilding and, you know, is that patience is the key to rewilding. Like first the garden sleeps, then it creeps, then it leaps. That's a popular saying among gardeners. Yeah, so the first year the garden doesn't look great because you just planted everything. Everything's kind of sparse, and the root, it's, you know, just adapting and focusing on like its root growth, so it doesn't look too great, and things die back. And then the second year they grow back and they're a little bit better, but it's still not like a full lush garden like what you expected, you know. But you know, they're there as long as they're getting established. And then in the third year usually the garden will leap and you'll have fully established plants, and they will have hopefully multiplied by then, and so you'll have lots of seeds and volunteer plants, and the garden will fill in. So you can plant annuals to fill in a new garden, until it gets established. Some native annuals could be partridge pea and plains coreopsis, but those might be kind of difficult to find. So the easy annuals to find, like in the supermarket or any garden center, would be like sunflowers, marigolds, lemon balm, sweet alyssum, and common herbs like dill and thyme. You know, you can use those in between in the meantime, and then hopefully as the garden fills in, you won't have to really use them anymore. And that's pretty much it. Like you will, you know, just have to maintain it for the first 2 years, really water and weed regularly, and then eventually the garden will get to a point where it will pretty much run itself and require very little maintenance. So with that, I will turn it over to Kim Simmen, and we'll get her list of 22 plants for 2022.
Hi,
Okay.
Patty. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. I'm Kimberly Simmen. If you haven't met me already, I'm the owner of KMS Native Plants, and I'm the recent addition to the board of directors at ReWild. With that, I'm just going to start right with the plants. These are some of the plants that we are offering for the ReWild plant sale for fall. It's a great time for planting, so don't let anybody tell you you shouldn't be planting. That's all just a myth. We're going to start with Aronia melanocarpa, which is also known as chokeberry, black chokeberry. I've tried them myself right off the bush, and honestly, I think they're pretty good that way, but for some, they're very sour. She's a fantastic shrub. She only gets about 3 to 6 feet tall. She's an early bloomer, so she is fantastic for all those early native pollinators like the bumblebees and the little sweat bees that come out. She's fantastic for that. There's really not a lot of early spring flowers unless you're looking at shrubs and trees. So this, like I said, she's a fantastic plant. She's deer resistant. That's hard to say nowadays because apparently it doesn't exist anymore, but that's a whole another story. She has fantastic fall color. She turns a nice bright red. So for those of you looking to replace your invasive burning bushes, she's a great candidate for it. You don't need a male and a female, as it is self-pollinating. So, I mean, the more shrubs you have, the more berry yields you're going to get, but they are self-pollinating, so you don't have to worry about that. She's very adaptable. She does, when you're first getting her going, she does prefer an average to moist soil. Average meaning it doesn't really dry out. Well drained is definitely important, which means basically it's a sandy soil, which most of us do have here on the island. I've been coming across a lot of people with clay soils, but again, that's another story. But once she is established, after about 2 years, she will tolerate some drought. So she's a great plant for almost every season. Like I said, she blooms in the spring, she berries afterwards in the fall. We can eat the berries. A lot of people make jams, jellies. I've also heard that the berries are great as a meat tenderizer. I haven't tried it myself, but we'll see. That's it on her. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Oh, this little cutie. Aquilegia canadensis wild columbine. This is everybody's favorite. She has these lovely little bell-shaped red and yellow bicolor flowers with the little spurs that are up there in the corner. That's what they call those. That's where the nectar is hidden. She's another early bloomer, May through June. Sometimes you get a little sporadic bloom out of her in July, which is always a nice surprise. She'll take partial shade to full shade. A lot of people think nothing grows in the shade. This is one of them. Average to wet soil, well drained, and lean. Lean means, I guess you'd want to say there's not a lot of nutrients in the soil. Most of our native plants do not want fertilizer. If you do give them any type of fertilizer, even being like a heavy compost, they get a little, what's the word I'm looking for? They get very floppy. Carla, they get very floppy. And so what happens is like they put more growth into their greens as opposed to flowering. She's a great nectar source for hummingbirds, bees, moths, and butterflies. My goal in my yard is to get hummingbirds. I haven't seen them yet, but everybody else is sending me their pictures, so yay. The seeds are consumed by the bird. She will self-sow readily in the garden, so she makes a great naturalizer in the garden. You just got to give her some room, and if you do have too many seedlings, you can always move them elsewhere. She's a host plant for the Columbine dusky winged butterfly. I've never seen them, but apparently it is. I said she's just a great plant all around. She is prone to leaf miner, which is a little insect, and if you have the leaves, you'll see like a little maze-like outline on your leaves. If that happens, it's not going to kill the plant. It just makes them a little unsightly. You can cut her back and she'll send up new foliage. That's it. Next one. Zizia aurea, fantastic plant. These are known as golden Alexanders. She is a host plant for our black swallow-tailed butterfly. Most people plant dill, fennel, rue, I think carrots. There's something else that's in her family, but this is our native food for the black swallowtail. And apparently it's not a great year for caterpillars, but I guess it goes in things because I've only seen 2 this year on her. But again, everybody else is sending me pictures and they're out there. She's got a great yellow flower. It's kind of like a flat top, which we would call an umbel. She blooms in May through June, and she gets quite tall at about 3 feet. So make sure you give her some room. When you do get her in the little pot, she doesn't look like much. Sorry about that. She doesn't look like much, but she will, the next year, she will be 3 feet tall. So just keep that in mind. She does prefer average to moist soil. Average again, meaning she doesn't dry out, but in my yard, she has been in some dried out soil and she's been fine. I don't recommend keeping her constantly in dry soil, but she will tolerate a little drought. She does bring in a lot of pollinators. She'll bring in, of all things, she brings in ants. She brings in all the little bees, like the sweat bees and the tiny carpenter bees, and the caterpillars. And I have also seen, I hate this word, but the maggot of the hoverfly, which is a fantastic pollinator also. And that's been a lot of fun seeing them on her. They do eat it, but they do also eat aphids. So they're another great predator for aphids. I think that's it on her. So let's go to the next one. Anemone canadensis. Canada anemone, she's also known as windflower, but the native plant really isn't a windflower because she does prefer a sheltered spot. Other anemones are also known as windflowers, and they can handle a little more wind. She gets an adorable, pretty decently sized white flower in April through June. She will send up a few later on throughout the season, so that's always just a nice little bonus. She will take part shade. She will take full shade, but she won't flower as much. So partial shade is best. Moist soil, wet soil, and well drained. She will take a little drought. If you do water her, she does perk up right again. I learned this myself with her. I've never had a yard where I could grow her, and I finally do. So she has had her moments of, excuse me, I need some water, but she comes right back. So she's another little toughie. She's a great low maintenance plant. She may get a little aggressive in the garden. So make sure you have a lot of room for her, or you can always just pull out the pieces and hand them out to your neighbors. She's deer resistant. Again, that's kind of hard these days, but so far she's deer resistant. Clay soil, meaning she will take some of that standing water so it doesn't drain so fast. Like I said, she does take moist to wet, so clay soil is perfectly fine. She makes a good cut flower for a little vase, so she is really cute. Put her on the kitchen counter. And another good thing about her is she attracts predatory and parasitic insects, which actually prey on other insects. So say you have aphids in the yard, she will bring in our little friend, the parasitic wasp, who will lay her eggs on aphids or anything like that. And what happens is those larvae hatch and they consume the aphid. So it's actually kind of interesting. I wish I had a picture of it because it's actually really cool. But that's a lot of fun. So she brings in things like that. So even though she's a little aggressive, she does bring in some really good things. Let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else about her. No, that should be it. So the next one. Oh, tiarella cordifolia, foam flower. One of my absolute favorite ground covers. The most fun about her is you could have 10 plants and they may all have different types of foliage. She can have a little red in her foliage. She could be straight green like the one in the picture. She could have red veins. She could be red and green. She's mostly green, but she may have, like I said, it's a lot of fun having her because just to see how many different ways she grows. She's a great ground cover. She's a little slower than other ground covers, but she is a nice ground cover. Her flowers also are a lot of fun. They can either be white or they can be like a blush pink. She'll take part shade to, again, full shade. Moist, well-drained soil. I've had her dry out a little bit. She's okay. So she tolerates a little drought, but she doesn't want to go too long because like I said, she doesn't tolerate it for more than about a day. So if you see her and she's sad, help her quickly because her downfall is very fast if it isn't. She also does not like wet soil in winter. Another plant called the butterfly weed, the orange flowering Escalapias tuberosa is another one. So like this year when we had all that snow sitting on the ground, it kept the soil very wet. So I know I lost a lot of tiarella this year because of that. And then I lost also a few butterfly weed because of that. She's rabbit and deer resistant. That is a big thing this year. Apparently rabbits are a problem. I know I'm having issues with them this year. They don't seem to eat much of it. The young ones will try it, but then they keep going. She is semi-evergreen, which is another fantastic plus for her. Her foliage in the fall turns like a, it's not a dark burgundy, but it's almost like a reddish burgundy. It's really pretty. And then she holds that all the way through to when her new leaves start to come up. She does flower before the leaves fully show, so she is a lot of fun. Like I said, she's actually one of my absolute favorite plants. Let's see, let's go to the next one. Carex pennsylvanica, oak sedge. Some people also know it as Pennsylvania sedge. She is a fantastic little workhorse in the garden. She loves shade, partial shade. She'll take some sun, but preferably more on the partial shade side, meaning basically oak sedge. If she's under oak trees, they get that that dappled shade that kind of opens a little and then it gets shady again. She's perfect for that. She only gets about 8 inches tall. She does spread by rhizomes and she does self-sow when she's very happy. I said she's a great little plant in the shade garden. She's great for filling in like in between ferns and I hate to say it, but with hostas. She's, like I said, she's a great little filler in there. She looks great mixed with tiarella. She's nice underneath sweet pepper bushes, basically anything in the shade or part shade. She's just a fantastic filler. She'll take over that little spot where nothing is growing. She gets a little seed head, nothing crazy. The birds, especially the robins, do love last year's dried foliage, so don't clean it away. You'll actually watch them fighting with the plant and pulling them off in the spring. It's actually a lot of fun to see them make their nests with it. She's great in a container, so if you need a little spiller on the side in a shade container, she's fantastic in there. She does prefer a drier soil. She will take a moist soil. But like I said, mostly under oaks and pines is where she's going to be found. So it is a drier shade, which is nice. She also makes a fantastic lawn alternative, especially in shady spots where almost nothing grows for you. She makes a great, like I said, her texture is just lovely. She can handle a little foot traffic, not a lot, just a little bit. Basically, I would call it light foot traffic. So if you're walking through the yard and you step on her, it's not a big deal. Let's see. And that's pretty much it on her. Iris versicolor, blue flag iris. This little cutie, I just learned today, I never knew this, but the 3 falls that are the lower petals on the flower, they actually stand for wisdom, faith, and courage. I learned that today. I thought that was kind of fun. So I was like, oh, interesting. So I'm guessing that has a lot to do with the fleur-de-lis and French people with that. So I'm thinking that's where that comes from. I just happened, like I said, I just noticed that before. I didn't really go into it. And I was like, that's a lot of fun. She is a lot of fun. I've never seen a bumblebee go to her until this year. And it was actually quite amusing because actually in all my years, I've never seen an iris pollinated by an insect. And this year, the bumblebees were going nuts with them, which I thought was a lot of fun. She does spread rhizomatically and by seed. She can get quite aggressive. It says moist to wet soil, but don't be fooled by that. If she's in a basic garden setting and the soil's average-ish to moist, she will create a community. The flowers don't last long, but she actually has, I think there's between 3 to 5 flowers per stem. So unlike the hybrids, like the German hybrids and all of them that don't last that long, she actually goes for quite some time, a few weeks at least, which is also, like I said, it's nice to see. Irises are beautiful. I don't know what else to say about her. She's a lovely plant, but yeah, they actually last a lot longer than the other ones, like the Japanese and the, like I said, the German hybrids. And I think there's also the Siberians, but she's really a workhorse. She is salt tolerant, so she can be near like a beach planting. I have a lot of people that have issues like that where their house is close to a harbor or something like that. So she is salt tolerant. I wouldn't recommend putting her right in the water for salt tolerant, but she can be put right into a pond, like a regular freshwater pond. She makes a good marginal plant in there, or like I said, she can be completely submerged, she'll be fine. Let's see. She can also be purple, a lavender blue, and I've also seen her, the straight species, a nice pale lavender. So she's a really pretty flower. She also makes a good cut flower, but I usually try not to cut her because she does have, like I said, 3 to 5 flowers. Like after one dies, the next one will come up and then the next one. So we kind of leave her in the garden. The birds eat the seeds and she's supposed to get hummingbirds. I've never seen it, but maybe one day we'll see. And she's very easy to propagate. All you have to do is kind of just divide her, just like any old iris. Just use a nice sharp spade and you can divide her up and give her out to all your friends because you will have plenty of her. Let's go to the next one. Bronicastrum virginicum, Culver's root. This plant is actually really a lot of fun. The picture doesn't show it. I should have used the one I just got today. I should have changed it. But her flowers look more like a candelabra. Also, some people say like a big hand, I guess you could say, but I think of her more as a candelabra. Her flowers can be white to a pale lavender, like so pale that you actually have to get up close to see that they are a lighter shade. She gets quite tall. She can get anywhere from 4 feet to 7 to 8 feet tall, depending on how happy she is. Sun, partial shade, average to wet soil. You can also have her in a little, like I wouldn't go dry, but she will take a little less than average. So I guess we'll call like, I guess average would be it. So as long as it's also well drained, another plant that needs, most plants do want well drained. You can deadhead her to encourage more blooms because she'll keep going. She starts blooming in June and she keeps going through August. I actually have some here in the yard that are still sending up new blooms, which is fantastic. She does not like overhead watering. Unfortunately, with the rain, we can't control that. But if you do have to water her manually, just try not to get it on the foliage because she will get a little fungus spot on her. It doesn't affect her at all, just makes her a little, spotted look, and you can just remove those. If she's in too much shade, she is gonna flop. So you might have to stake her there. So I wouldn't put her in too much shade. So preferably sun, partial shade, more towards the more sun. The bees have been having a great time with her. The native wasps are fantastic. And the monarchs were actually hitting her today. So that was actually a lot of fun. That's about it on her. Let's go to the next one. Escalapias incarnata, swamp milkweed. This is a fantastic wildlife plant. Her flowers are quite fragrant and actually really cool looking. She blooms from July to August, and sometimes you'll get a little more blooms out of her into September, but usually by then she's really setting her seed pods. She can get to be about 3 to 4 feet tall. I have seen her in the 5-foot area, but that was like perfect conditions. Sun is preferred, but part shade will work. I have her in a lot of spots in my yard in part shade, and she's perfectly fine. And she stays around the 3-foot area with that. Don't let the swamp part of her scare you. She will take a drier soil. I have her in a partial shade bed in my house that barely gets any water, and she's just fine. Every once in a while, she does droop a little bit. So I'm like, fine, I'll give you a little water, but she's actually really tough for any situation. She's a clumper. So unlike some milkweeds that do run, she does not. So she stays in her little clump and she just gets wider with every year. Let's let's see what else we have for her. She's deer resistant, but I have had people say that the deer have been eating them, which is really amusing. She's a host plant for the Monarch Butterfly larvae. And I find her next to the common milkweed. I find this one to be one of their favorites. So if you're looking for the caterpillars, this is the one to have if you don't want the runner in the yard. Like I said, common milkweed is fantastic, but not everybody has room for her. So this plant would be perfect for you. Let's see, like I said, she's like the great, she brings in such cool wasps. Usually once she blooms, that's when our native great black wasp comes out, and she's fantastic. So like I said, she's great for the birds, the bees. The birds will eat the seeds. And I've also heard that the goldfinches will actually use the, inside the seed pod, they have the seed with that really fluffy, of course, I cannot think of what it's called right now, but they have the little fluffy thing on them that when the wind hits them, it takes them wherever they're going. But I heard birds use that to actually line their nests in the spring. So if there's any laying around after the winter, if there's any left, they will use that for nest material. Okay, next. Beatrice Piccata, blazing star, one of the most popular native plants. She makes a great cut flower too. Liatrice are a lot of fun because most plants will bloom from the bottom to the top. Liatrice starts at the top and then goes to the bottom. So she's actually a lot of fun for kids' gardens. Monarchs love her. Like I said, she's a total butterfly magnet. She's a bumblebee magnet. Deer resistant. She's great in the garden because she makes a good filler. Like she doesn't really take up a lot of space. So she's very vertical. So it's actually nice to have her just in little pockets in the garden. Preferably full sun. She will take part shade. She won't get as tall. So that 2 to 4 foot range in the shade, well, in part shade, she's going to stay about 2 feet tall to about 2.5. That would be in my yard. So she does take part shade. She blooms July through August. If you do deadhead her, she will send up new flowers. So you will have flowers later into the season. I do recommend leaving some of the heads because the goldfinches absolutely love her seeds. And she will reseed in the garden. So it kind of takes a long time, but she does reseed, and she starts out as like this little tiny leaf. And then after many years, she actually becomes a substantial thing. She's also a bulb. So a lot of people don't realize that, but she is a bulb. So she's easy to propagate. Let's see, anything else on her? No, I think that's it. We'll go to the next one. Allium cernuum, nodding onion. I love this plant. Most people don't get it, but I think she's fantastic. She's pink or she can be white. She has that nice little sphere flower like most alliums have. Everybody knows Allium Globemaster or Gladiator, which is that giant flowering onion, all in the same family. This one is actually edible. Every part of it is. Most people don't use it anymore, but she is completely edible. Flowers, leaves, stems, and especially the bulb. She is a bulb plant. She gets her name because when she's just sending up her buds, her little flowers nod. So it kind of looks like they're hanging their heads low. I have a customer who calls her the sad onion, but I'm like, that's so wrong. She's so cute. She's deer resistant. She is black walnut tolerant, meaning she can handle the juglone in the soil that a black walnut will do. Many of you have black walnuts on the property and have no idea why nothing grows under them. It's because of the juglone that they put out into the soil. But our allium will actually take it. She's clay soil tolerant, so it doesn't have to be a well-drained soil, preferably well-drained, but like I said, she will sit in moist soil. She will take dry soil. She's great in a planter, just as like a little filler in there. I like her in the garden just as a filler. I just put her in spots wherever like there is nothing. And she'll make a nice little clump there. When they get to be about 8 stems. You technically should divide the bulbs, especially if they're not blooming as much anymore. She will self-sow readily in the garden if you don't want her to. It's very easy to see when the seeds are going to drop. And each of the individual flowers that are in the little globe, you'll see, I think there's 5 seeds in each one, but you can't miss them. They're little tiny black seeds, but the whole thing is covered in them. So if you don't want her to self-sow, just cut them off and share them with friends. Like I said, it's a great plant just as a filler. She's a great nectar source. Our bumblebees absolutely adore her. It's so funny because as you sit there and you watch the flowers starting to unfurl, the bumblebees actually get a little aggravated waiting for them to open. And she only gets about 12 to 2 feet tall. Mine in the yard get about 18 inches, and then she'll get about 6 to 12 inches wide. And I think that's it on her. Okay. Lobelia Cardinalis, the cardinal flower. She is a fantastic flower. A lot of people have her right now, and if they don't, they see it in other people's gardens going, what is that? She's so red, she looks fake. She's absolutely lovely. She gets to be about 2 to 4 feet tall. And she'll probably get between 12 to 24 inches wide. Her flowers are screaming scarlet red. The bumblebees love her. Hummingbirds love her. I have a ton in my yard. I'm still waiting for my hummingbirds, but everybody keeps showing me their pictures also of their hummingbirds. So at least it's working for someone. She will take average to wet soil. And even more important, she will take full shade. She will take full shade, part shade, and sun. The more sun she gets, the more wet the soil should be. But in the shade, she does great along the edge of a pond. It's absolutely lovely when you see her in a really dark, shady garden, and then there's this scarlet red flower, and then there's usually a mass of them, and it's absolutely amazing. She's moderately deer and rabbit resistant. With the experience with rabbits, I had one come in and cut the flowers off of one plant. Meanwhile, I had 8 of them. So it cut the flowers off all of them, didn't eat them, and then left. I guess it didn't like it. So I guess that's what they call moderately deer and rabbit resistant. It may try it. She's a July through September bloomer. You can deadhead her. Again, she is going to seed herself in the garden. So make sure you leave some that go to seed. And then other than that, like I said, she's a great little naturalizer because she does self-sow. So she'll make a really nice stand. And like I said, there's nothing like seeing that bright red in the shade, especially in the summer. Okay, next one. Monarda fistulosum, wild bergamot. She is a fantastic plant. Like most Monardas, she does get powdery mildew, but we can actually deal with that. She has this beautiful little, they're not really that little, they're actually quite large flowers. They're lavender pink. They bloom from July to September. You can deadhead Monarda. She will send up more flowers, but I do recommend, again, leaving some for the birds so they have some seeds to eat. She's a hummingbird attractor. Another plant that is black walnut tolerant. So again, if you have black walnuts on your property, she will grow under them. Preferably sun, part shade. And she does need a little room because technically, like I said, with Monardas, you're supposed to give them a little room to have air circulation. But I find no matter what you give to them, they get the powdery mildew, but you just ignore it and look at the pretty flowers. She's a magnet for bees. She's a magnet for butterflies. She's clay soil tolerant, so she can actually sit in some wet soil, but she will also take dry soil. Which is nice too, because the other Monarda, which is your bee balm, the red one, she prefers a moist soil. So this is a good one if you have an area, ouch, if you have an area that's a little on the dry side, but does get moist on occasion, like if you have a lot of rain or if you do have runoff from a sprinkler in an area. She's really good for that. The whole plant is actually edible and it's great for teas. It's great for, I'm just trying, if you want to do bergamot tea, actually, which is where this comes from. I know there's another one also, but this is also used for bergamot tea, which would be Earl Grey. Let's see, I'm trying to think what else she has. Other than that, oh, her leaves are also used for perfume. So you'll find her as one of the a plant that's used for scenting perfumes. And let's see, and I think that's it for her. Panicum brigatum shenandoah. This is a red switchgrass as opposed to our straight switchgrass, which is a lovely plant. This one's good because she stays kind of on the compact side. She only gets about 24 to 36 inches tall and just as wide. She does prefer sun to part shade, average to wet soil. And just like our straight species, she will tolerate a little drought. If she gets too much shade, she will get a little floppy like most native plants. She's great in a planter because of her smaller size also. And like I said, great for a smaller garden. Like I said, drought tolerant. Her foliage is a greenish blue with a little hint of burgundy during the growing season, but come fall, she turns a deep red burgundy, and she's just absolutely lovely. The birds do love her seeds, so I don't recommend cutting her down in the winter. Basically, let the winter cut her down because like I said, the birds will come and eat her seeds. And they also use grasses, especially in the winter, as shelter. And they will use the blades for nesting material come the spring. And the next one. Pygmanthemum Tenufolium, threadleaf mountain mint. One of my absolute favorites. I am a Pygmanthemum junkie. I think they're all fantastic. All 20 of them are actually native to North America, and there are 3 that are native to this area. So it would be the Pygmanthemum Tenufolium, the threadleaf mountain mint, common mountain mint, which is Pygmanthemum virginianum, and then Pygmanthemum muticum, which has a few names. I call it blunt-leafed or short-toothed mountain mint. They're all total pollinator magnets. I mean, if you want to see native bees and wasps, you need to put some of these in your garden. Just the amount of pollinators it's unbelievable. I have people come and see them, and they're amazed that, you know, the insects are on there that they've never ever seen. She's a long bloomer. She'll bloom from July to September. You can deadhead her, so you might get a little longer bloom out of her, kind of bring her into October. She gets between 24 to 36 inches and just as wide. She does prefer full sun. She will take partial shade. This one actually likes an average to dry soil, and her flowers are actually really cute. They're it's a flat head, and then she gets these little teeny tiny white little flowers on them that have little purple polka dots on them. They're actually really cute, but they're best viewed up close. But like I said, if you're looking to bring pollinators in, any one of these will work for you. She's great in a planter also. So if you don't have the room for her in the garden, put her in a planter. Deer resistant, but I heard some nibble on her because she's not as minty as some of the other mountain mints. And I know you're hearing the word mint going, oh my God, I'm not putting a mint in my yard. Mountain mints are actually clumpers. They're not runners, unlike our the invasive European mints like spearmint, which will start in one place and next thing you know, it's your entire garden bed. They don't grow like that. Like I said, they're clumpers, and their clumps just get bigger every year. If they do get a little too big for you, just go in and pull them out. They're not hard to pull out. Let's see. Other than that, like I said, she's just great. If you want pollinators, this is one of the plants to have. Actually, if you look, there's actually the little butterfly that's on there. I think the one in the bottom corner there, that's actually a mint moth, which I just thought was the cutest little thing. And next to her is a little beetle. And actually they're, like I said, it's pollinated by bees, beetles, moths, ants, butterflies. I mean, you name it, it comes to this plant. I think that's it. Go to the next one. Chelone glabra, white turtlehead. This plant's a lot of fun. She is prone to a little powdery mildew, but it's so worth growing her. She does prefer a moist to wet soil. If she does, she doesn't tolerate any drought, or she has any drought, that's when the powdery mildew and all the yucky things come moving in on her. She has these great little turtle head flowers, which is great to watch bumblebees, because bumblebees can actually go and pry her open and get in there. So they actually open it and go completely in the flower, and the flower closes behind them. They gather what they need and then they come out. Like I said, it's actually just a lot of fun watching them open it and getting in. She's a host plant for the Baltimore checker spot. I've never seen a checker spot, and I have Chelone this year in my yard, and I'm so hoping to get them in here. She's deer resistant. She's great in a planter, especially in a shady area. She does prefer partial shade over sun. So if she is in the sun, she's going to need a lot more moisture. But like I said, she does prefer part shade. She gets about 18 to 28 inches, so I'd say about 4 feet tall, and she can get just as wide. She blooms August to September, and sometimes she gets a little further into October, but usually it's August, September. She always has like a white flower with a little blush tip. And like I said, the little turtle heads they're really cute. They're great for children's gardens. And I think that's it. We'll go to the next one. Vernonia novaborsensis, New York ironweed. New York ironweed is a fantastically tall but thin plant. She's great for smaller gardens or in the backdrop of a garden, because like I said, she is tall and thin, so she doesn't take up a lot of room. But she can get to be, if she's very happy, she can get to be about 6 feet tall. I actually have her in part shade in my yard, and she usually stays at about 3.5 to 4 feet tall. She does prefer an average to wet soil. In my yard, I think it's basically consistently moist where she is. She does self-sow, so just keep that in mind. She self-sows readily, so you'll be giving out to friends and you'll be moving them all over the yard. Like I said, she's a great plant for late season pollinators. She just started blooming probably this week. She'll go through September, and sometimes you may get a little more into October. Being that she is a fall bloomer, what you want to do is cut her back by about 2/3 to 1/2 at 4th of July. So she's a tidier and more floriferous plant for you. Like I said, it also keeps her on the shorter side so she doesn't get crazy big. But again, like I said, it's going to give you a lot more flowers, and that's what you're looking for. The birds love the seeds. I have them always, they're always in here in like December picking at the seeds. She's another one who's black walnut tolerant. So like I said, she does handle partial shade. So that's a good fit for her there. She does tolerate some drought. I know mine went for a little while without it, but she does bounce right back. So she is good for a rain garden also. Deer resistant, yeah. Supposed to be. Like I said, I have a lot of trouble with the deer resistant lately. But other than that, she's a great plant. She just needs, you just have to remember she needs the back of the border because she's going to be quite large. And we'll go to the next one. Saladago rigida, stiff goldenrod. All the goldenrods are absolutely fantastic plants, especially in the fall, because that's when they're there doing their thing, and all the monarch butterflies need her for a source of nectar, and for the monarchs, actually basically all butterflies, bees, they all love her for that late source of nectar. Another one who can be cut back. This one you would want to cut back in mid to late June because she blooms a little earlier than the other ones. But all the other solidagos, except for early solidago, you want to cut them back again July 4th. So you have a more floriferous plant and more flowers to give to all the critters. Most of them prefer full sun. This one here, full sun. There are a couple that will take part shade. They are fantastically adaptable. Taking an average soil, they will tolerate drought. They do tolerate a little moist soil. Some can get a little crazy. So this one here, she does spread by rhizomes. So you want to make sure you have plenty of room for her. She is pulled out pretty easy. So if she gets a little crazy, you can still pull her out. She's called stiff goldenrod because she has a very straight stem, and then the flower is all the way at the top, and she's kind of like almost flat topped. But she's a great plant to have, like I said, because birds will eat the seeds in the winter, and then she's great for our late pollinators. Okay. Conoclinium colistinum. I'm still getting used to its new name. This is mist flower. It's also known as Eupatorium colistinum. She has a lovely little lavender blue flossy flower, I guess you want to call her. Many of you know the little annual called ageratum, which only gets about 12 inches tall that they sell as an annual. This is the perennial version of her. She gets to be about 20 to 36 inches, but again, she blooms August to October. So technically you can cut her back also by July 4th. This way she'll be more floriferous and she won't be as tall. She is quite the aggressive spreader though. I love this plant. I have a lot of room for her, so I just let her take over wherever she feels like going. She fills in all the little areas where nothing else is growing. She crowds out all the weeds. Very easy to pull out. So if she does get a little out of hand, she's very easy to pull out. She makes a fantastic cut flower. She's deer resistant. Great for late season pollinators. Actually today in the yard, all the monarchs were enjoying her and the little silver spotted skippers. And actually had a black swallowtail in the yard today too. So she's fantastic for our late season bloomers. Like I said, she makes a great cut flower. She's also very good in a planter. What she does in the garden, she does the same in the planter. So she's a lot of fun when she just brings herself around, when she mixes herself in with all the other flowers. But if you want something to crowd out weeds, this is the way to go. I said, I think she's fantastic. Some people think she's a little too aggressive, but to each his own. She will take full sun. She will take part shade. She will also grow in the shade. Like I said, she's pretty adaptable to almost any situation. And if she isn't happy, she's easy to move because she takes right away. I haven't seen a place anywhere where she's not happy. She's great out by the mailbox. If you want to put some native plants that are really tough, she'd be great out there. Let's see. Other than that, that's really it on her. Schizocarium scoparium little blue stem. She's a fantastic plant. Just her color alone is absolutely lovely. It's almost like a steel gray blue. She turns a stunning bronzy orange in the fall. The birds love her seed. She's deer resistant. She's black walnut resistant. She'll take a clay soil. You need it, she can do it. She can get a little floppy, but that's what she's supposed to do. She is a prairie plant. So she does prefer other plants around her, and that's what will hold her up. Like I said, she can get a little floppy, and that's really only if she has a, I guess, again, we're going to go back to that. If it's a fertile soil, she does prefer dry, well-drained, no fertilizer, and she's a happy camper. Her blooms, I guess you'd want to call them, are like a purpley, bronzy color. So they're actually really pretty in contrast to the foliage. And then her seed heads are kind of like a silvery white. She's a larval host to many things: the dusted skipper, the Indian skipper, the crossline skipper, and the cobweb skipper. These are all those little tiny butterflies that you always see around. Like I said, she's fantastic. She works well in the garden. She works well on a planter. Actually, her foliage is fantastic in vase arrangements. She's gonna get about 24 inches tall, and when she's in bloom, she'll get about 3 to 4 feet tall. And usually she only stays about 2 feet wide. And she's, like I said, she's a fantastic plant. Next one. Symphytrichum cordifolium, bluewood aster, also known as aster cordifolium. This is one of my absolute favorite plants ever. She's also known as heartleaf aster because her leaves are totally heart-shaped. She will take sun, part shade, and shade, dry, medium soil, moist soil. She's quite adaptable. Some people say she gets a little weedy, but I think she's fantastic. Like I said, she's covered in little blue flowers, lavender blue really, in the fall. She's one of the later bloomers, so she's going to be September to November-ish. So she's really great for those late season pollinators and monarchs that are on their way to do the migration. I usually pinch her several times before July 4th, because if you don't, she can get 4 feet tall. I like to keep mine in that 2 to 3 foot area. I said she's a fantastic plant, and especially in the shade, in a part shade garden, because she's that light blue that really lights up a shady area. She will self-sow, so keep that in mind. So she will be everywhere, not just in the area where you're growing her, as the birds do also eat her seeds and bring them around too. Like I said, she's a fantastic plant. She works great in the garden. She works great in a planter. I mean, she's just fantastic. And I think that's really about it. And actually, if you look at her though, you can see how her little centers, they can be red or they can be yellow. So it's really a nice contrast with that lavender flower. Okay, next one. Symphytrichum oblongifolium, radon's favorite, which is aromatic aster. She is a cultivar of the straight species. She's a little more disease resistant than the straight species, which is also just a fantastic plant. The aromatic asters are our latest asters to bloom. They're going to be September through November. Last year, mine kept going through December. It's a fantastic plant. She'll take full sun, part shade. She is an aster that loves dry soil, which is not normal for a lot of asters. Most of them definitely need a moist soil. Aromatic aster, calico aster, and heath aster all will take a drier soil. So if you have dry soil and you're like, I can't grow any asters, you can grow any one of these three. Like I said, they're the longest blooming. Again, you can cut this one back 4th of July by half. This way she's more floriferous and a tidier plant, because like I said, she can get quite tall. So she can get about 36 inches. She also spreads by rhizome, so she's going to form quite a colony. But like I said, she's great in areas where nothing else will grow. That little hell strip out by the street, fantastic for that. She'll tolerate the salt thrown at her, the sand thrown at her, just horrible conditions. And the flower is just lovely. It's a little over an inch tall, and it's just a bee magnet. It's moderately deer and rabbit resistant, which really amuses me because it's really aromatic, especially the foliage. So I'm surprised that the deer even nibble at it. It's also kind of sticky. So usually they stay away from things like that, but they're now starting to eat it. So it's moderately deer and rabbit resistant. Okay. Oh, and I think I'm done. And that was it. I can't hear anything. Am I
think there are questions in the chat.
The chat. Ah,
Okay, there are a few questions here.
yes, I see that.
Okay, Marcia wants to know if she said some weeds like lamb's quarter are nutritional or medicinal. Can I keep them as long as I control them? I can answer that. It's kind of hard to control them, and they do grow. They can get. I've had lamb's quarter grow and take over my yard actually one year. So I mean, if as long as you're pulling the plants and keeping the ones you want, then and you watch it, then I guess it should be fine. But I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, Mary Ting says my mountain mint is flopping. Also the gray goldenrod, both in full sun. Any thoughts? First year.
Wait, where was that one?
It's by Mary Ting.
Oh, Mary Ting.
Yeah, she said my
Yes.
mountain. Yeah,
Okay. Do
Yes.
you know which mountain mint you have?
Oh, I have to get I'm sorry, I don't have it on hand.
That's okay.
But yeah, they're in full sun. I'm wondering, so one of them has flopped more than the other, like really flopped, like all the outer stems are on the ground.
With a mountain mint, just because they do start blooming around July, they are sometimes going to get a little floppy, especially if you don't cut them back. With my mountain mints, once they get to be about 12 to 18 inches tall, I usually take at least a quarter to a half off of them. And then they become tidier, they bloom a little later, and then they won't be as floppy.
Okay.
Another thing is you may actually have too much nutrition in the soil, but it's most likely just the fact that it's just because it's a mountain mint and was never cut back. So they do get a little top heavy. It's nothing to worry about though. But like I said, you can cut them back.
Okay. Can I still cut it back at this point?
Did it flower already?
Yeah.
You can actually, if you deadhead your mountain mint, it will send up more flowers.
So how far at this point should I cut it back?
Let's see, how tall, well, how tall is it about 24, 36? So you
At
could
least
probably take
24.
off a quarter. I mean, it just depends on how far back you want to go, but I would go about a quarter. This way she can still send up some more flowers.
Okay. And then with the goldenrod, so one is flopping and one isn't. Could it be that at one point I was afraid, because I don't really water them very much, and I was afraid that was an issue, and I'm not there all the time. So I added some compost. Could that have made it flop?
Yes, they do not want any food.
Okay.
Yeah, goldenrods are one of those ones. Basically, you see them growing on the roadside where there's absolutely no nutrition, or in a field that's just dry. They do not like, most native plants don't want any nutrition. There are some exceptions when you go into shadier plants, but goldenrods definitely like a leaner soil. Also on a goldenrod, cut them back by 1/2 to 2/3 at July 4th, and it'll keep them tidier and shorter.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Are you welcome?
Okay, another question is when would be the best time to thin out and move columbine?
Well, she blooms in the spring. I'm terrible. I move things whenever I have the time. So is she seeding herself, or you just want to move the entire plant out?
I don't know.
Seeding herself. So I need to move parts of it because it's spread a lot.
Yeah, this was like the year of the columbine. I have a lot of seedlings too. I'm actually waiting till the spring to actually see what makes it over the winter, and then I'll move things around. But if you want to move the main plant, you can definitely move the main plant now, if that's something you'd want to do, or there's something bigger than just seedlings.
Okay, do you treat powdery mildew on Monarda or Quilon? If so, with what and
Nope.
when?
We don't use anything in a native garden. So my thing is, they're supposed to get, like I said, they get powdery mildew, and you're supposed to leave a lot of room for air circulation. My thing is, plant something in front of it. All you'll see is her beautiful flowers, and then whatever else is below her will be covered.
Okay. Someone asked, I bought no mow seed. The grass was covered in black plastic and the grass is dead. Are the weed seeds in the soil dead as well? Can I clear and plant the new seed in September?
I know nothing of lawns.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the no mow. Raju, do you know about the no mow seed?
It's a cold season fescue from what I know. I have not planted it, but I know a couple of people who have. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, I know the best times to seed a lawn is the spring or the fall. That's about all I know about a lawn.
Right. In terms of the solarizing with the black plastic, I mean, I've heard of people doing this and then they take it off and then they let all the weeds sprout up again and then they re-solarize it. So I guess they do it twice because I guess the weeds don't always die the first time. So I don't know if that's an option, but really, we don't really deal too much with like lawns, like no mow seed. So we don't really know. Sorry.
Try Long Island Cauliflower Association in Riverhead.
Long Island, what was that?
Long Island Cauliflower Association in Riverhead.
Oh,
They know a lot about lawns.
okay. Is Miss Flower native to Long Island?
No, it is a North American native.
And would Miss Flower be good around a pond with very moist soil?
She will be very, 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 very happy there. She might be too happy near a pond. Like I said, she is very aggressive, so you just have to keep on top of her. Like I said, I have her in a moist situation and she's really happy. So I have to pull her out. I have to pull many of them out every year. But I do leave most of them. So yeah, if she's gonna be in a wet to very moist situation, just keep in mind she's gonna be very aggressive.
Okay, and someone asked, is it possible to get a list of these plants listed by when they bloom? I mean, this presentation will be available as a video probably by next week. So, and on each slide, you can see there's information about the sun and the water needs, and then also the bloom time. Yeah, what were you going to say?
I'll also post a link to the presentation, a read-only link to the presentation, so people should be able to see them.
Okay. And let me see if there are any more. Blue Miss Flower is not native to Long Island. Oh, that's you, Kim, writing back.
That was me.
Is there a full sun, southern exposure, drought tolerant ground cover that you would recommend? Full sun, southern exposure, drought tolerant ground cover.
You could use Spirabolus heterolepsis, which is prairie dropseed. She's not that low. She gets to be about 12 inches. She's a grass. She gets to be about 12 inches tall foliage wise. And then when she blooms, she's about 24 to 30 inches tall, but she's also scented. So she brings a little bit to the garden that way too. I'm trying to think what else.
I'm wondering if creeping phlox could be good.
Creeping phlox, yep. Most of them are evergreen. Yeah, because they prefer a drier soil, so that would work. Trying to think offhand. I'm trying to look at what's in there. You can do. How tall of the ground cover are you looking for?
Just green.
Just green? Well, how about how tall did you want it to be?
I didn't want it that tall.
Well, so you want to keep it low.
It's like where you walk and
You could do Arctostaphylos, which is bearberry, would work.
bearberry.
Yep,
Okay.
bearberry would work. Trying to think who else is low. The Phlox subulata that Rebecca mentioned.
So I'm thinking of in a path between pavers and also on the hill strip.
Well, for the hill strip, you could do the creeping phlox, which is a Phlox subulata. They have no problem with that area. You can go a little taller and you can do some of the asters that like the dry soil. Trying to think who else is short that'll take that. It's a tough spot, especially for low things. There's not a lot of like low staying attractive. Like, most natives fall in that 24 to 36 inch area, if you've noticed.
Yeah, they're all the same height.
They all seem to be the same size because people are like, I want a staggered garden. I'm like, it's not going to happen. They're all the same size. Trying to think what else. There is a plant called poppy mallow. She's not native to this area, but she's a North American native, and she's fantastic as a ground cover.
Oh.
She's also known as wine cups.
Uh-huh.
And she's a fantastic little hell strip, full sun, garbage soil. I mean, you name it, she can take it. And she blooms actually from June through the first frost. She gets
Oh,
a
that's
little,
great.
yeah, she gets a little ratty in August, and you give her a little trim back, and then bam, she's all good again. And she seeds herself, so she makes a nice mat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The creeping phlox really works even with like dogs walking on it and people walking on it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
people walking on it, yeah.
Right. Okay, are other columbines not native? Like the
Not
ones?
native, they're European.
No. Okay.
There is a Western columbine, but I never remembered its name. That would be the other native one, but everything else is European.
And the final question is, do you have any experience with dogwood osier, the red stem dogwood?
She's one of the easiest plants to grow. She actually prefers, she likes a well-drained soil, but she will actually sit in moist soil also. She's very easy to grow. She'll take part shade. She will take full sun. You just got to keep the soil a little on the moist side. But she does well with a cutting back. Most people never ever cut back their red twig dogwood, but the point of a red twig dogwood is to have red twigs. So if you never cut her back, those old stems actually lose their color. So what you want to do with them is every spring, clean out any of the old canes and then let the new ones come up, or you completely can cut her down and let her regrow. I said she's a great plant for flowers. She's fantastic. They're adorable. Her little fruits are good. And I think she's actually a host plant for something. And of course, offhand, I can't remember what it is, but she's definitely a host plant. But she's a very easy plant. In the spring, if you want to, when you do cut her back, you can take those pieces, stick them in the soil, and they'll root as long as you keep them watered. So she's really easy.
Okay, and I just want to mention here, it says all the plants mentioned in this presentation are currently available at our plant sale, but actually the stiff goldenrod is not. I thought it was, but we have two other types of goldenrod available. We have showy goldenrod and seaside goldenrod.
Oh, seaside goldenrod.
Yeah.
It's
I just
fantastic.
wanted to, yeah. And then also on September 1st at 7 p.m., we're going to be having Anthony Marinello from Dropseed, Native Landscapes. He's going to come on and talk about maintenance, do a whole presentation about garden maintenance, native plant garden maintenance, in case anybody wants to join that. That's Wednesday, September 1st at 7.
Nice.
Oh, hold on.
Much needed thing.
Comments. Okay, informative. Thank you, Kim and Rebecca. Okay, great. I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. And if no one has any more questions, then I guess we'll just end the meeting. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for, coming to our presentation, and we hope you buy lots of plants, and next year there'll be lots of happy butterflies and bees and everything else.
And again, if you ever have questions, you can contact us.
Right, yes.
Perfect.
Okay, take care.
All right, have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. It's so weird when I'm sharing, I'm just like, I can't tell, I forget that it's my screen, I'm just all over the Well, that went well. Sorry, I skipped a few slides.
Oh,
I
that's
thought-
all right.
I thought we skipped a plant. I was trying to write them down to make sure we had them all. I think we had them all, hopefully. Hopefully.
Hopefully. So
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
good. I mean, you did really well. I was a little nervous, so I kind of breezed through it, but
I talk a lot when I'm nervous.
all
And I
right.
giggle. So,
Yeah,
all righty.
that's great. Thanks so much.
Have a great night, everybody.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.